This is a More Than Just Podcast production.
Welcome to Podcast Season 6, Episode 49. My name is Tim Mitchell. I am in Toronto, Ontario. I'm joined by Jonathan Kuline in Mississauga, Ontario.
Hello there, kids.
And Jaime has a
family emergency
pet disaster to deal with, so he's not going to be able to join us today. So anyway, we'll dig into the fact check. Actually, before we get to the fact check, do I have to explain in vitro fertilization to you two guys, or what?
To us?
Yeah.
Why?
Well, because, you guys went on about these two female characters making a baby. Well, and actually, it's funny, there's an old feminist theory that two women can make a baby because they've got all the genetic material they need.
Yeah, right? IVF does not, as far as I know, exist in the Star Wars universe, so that's kind of a different thing.
Well, how do you know that? Well, it was a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, but,
Yeah. Well, she makes it pretty plain that there's some kind of magical intervention of some kind.
Yeah, and so let's go back to the Anakin Skywalker creation theory that you guys mentioned, like miraculously made by midichlorians or something.
Oh no, manipulated. There is a lot of stuff.
Because I'm pretty sure that Padme and Anakin got it on, right?
Yeah, but that's how Luke and Leia were created, not how Anakin was created.
Oh, how Anakin was created. Annie came from what's her name? Shmi, right?
Yeah, but Shmi says in episode 1 there was no father.
Oh, right.
It's the immaculate conception.
Yeah. I think Mary said there was no father too. Yeah, I remember that story. Yeah.
Well, in the
I might have believed it when I was in grade 3, but
Yeah, in the sort of larger canon, it's been explained that Darth Plagueis had the ability to manipulate midichlorians, and so it's possible that either he or Palpatine actually made Anakin out of midichlorians, and that's possibly
so this is why women aren't allowed in Star Wars fandom, right? That's why women aren't allowed, right? Because it's boys club only.
I guess. I don't know. I think the idea is that this is an evil thing that they did, right? So I think the idea was they were trying to do it for nefarious reasons. It wasn't like, hey, really, if you think about it, the idea is that, this unsuspecting slave woman was basically artificially inseminated against her knowledge or will. So it's pretty messed up.
I guess. I don't know. I guess they don't have turkey basters in Star Wars, right?
Now that you mention it, I don't think I've ever seen a turkey baster in a Star Wars movie. Nor a turkey for that matter.
Well, let's go into the real fact check, shall we?
Real fact check, yes.
Real fact check. So Dean Charles Chapman, who plays Jedi Torben, was also Tomin Baratheon, who strangely leapt to his death.
Yeah.
And he also was Lance Corporal Blake in 1917. He was the title character, right? Or title actor. And spoilers if you haven't seen the movie, but he doesn't make it all the way through the end of the movie. So this Dean Charles Chapman guy doesn't have, that's 0 for 3, right?
Yeah, well, and he was also in Game of Thrones before he was cast as Tommen. He was actually another character as a younger person playing Martin Lannister in one of the earlier seasons, and then they wanted to age the Tommen character up, so they got rid of the little kid that they had him playing, and then had brought Dean Charles Chapman in to play the older version.
Wait, so there was a different character playing Tommen Baratheon, you mean, right?
Yeah, but they were like, he's going to take a more central role, and I think it was because they were going to have him be sexually active with Marjorie in Game of Thrones, and they were like, we can't have this little kid being, rolling in the hay with this clearly woman. So, and
Marjorie was
she was Marjorie Tyrell. She was she was the one who was from Highgarden. She was the one who kept trying to basically she tried to get with the King Renly, then she tried to get with Joffrey, and then she tried to get with Tommen, and then in the end, all the characters in Game of Thrones, she dies ignominiously.
Right.
But, yeah, but you're right. He's kind of had a bad run of luck.
Yeah, he's not made it all the way through each one of his movies, right? So, or shows or whatever.
Yeah.
Although technically he was in the last 2 episodes of this thing we're just watching. And Paul Giamatti, who I saw a comment by him, I think an interview with him actually on one of the late night shows a while back. He had the lazy eye, but if you go back and watch the movie, the lazy eye switches from eye to eye.
Oh, does it?
Yeah, and the position that it's pointing, like the direction it's lazily pointing to, because lazy eye is a weak muscle, whatever, and it usually points in one direction. It points in many directions, right? So that was part of the sort of comedy of that particular eyepiece, if you will, right? So yeah, he had to he switched eyes and yeah, just for fun kind of thing, right? He and the director talked about doing that or something like that, right? But yeah, I did notice, because I remember when I was watching that going, wait a minute, was that not the other eye a minute ago? Like, I thought maybe they flipped the film or something, right? But when I did notice it, but yeah, not just one eye, but they moved around. If you go back and watch the movie. And Roxanne Dawson also directed Foundation, which we talked about before. And we've also talked about The Morning Show. And she also directed a few episodes of Runaways. And I'm pretty sure I saw an interview with her that I think she did, was going to or did direct one of the episodes of Voyager.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Yeah. So she's been at it for a while.
Yeah. No, that's great. Again, it just, I wasn't paying that much attention, and then I just saw her name pop up and I was like, oh, that's a strange coincidence, obviously.
Yeah,
us being a Star Trek podcast or sci-fi / Star Trek podcast, but yeah.
No, she moved into directing a while ago. Alrighty, because I heard her interviewed on, again, maybe on something about, maybe she was being interviewed as a director, but of course, they had to talk about her role on Voyager. Cool. All right, let's move to the headlines. A pretty interesting trailer. I just watched this one a few minutes ago.
Yeah, so we got our first trailer for Star Trek Prodigy Season 2. We talked a few episodes back about how it's coming on July 1st to Netflix, and 20 episodes, and it sounds like they're going to drop all 20 at once, as Netflix does. But yeah, this is the first time we've really gotten a more deep look at what is actually in it. We've gotten those stills before, so I think we knew that we were going to get the animated version of the Doctor, the holographic Doctor, that we were going to get a little bit more into the searching for Chakotay, and so we knew some of these elements, but yeah, it's pretty fulsome. We actually get a look at some of the bits of some of the episodes and some of the characters. Obviously, they're working with Starfleet and Janeway and the crew, as opposed to the sort of first season with the whole thing was like they were just missing each other and not sure what each other were doing. So now they're actually full-fledged part of Starfleet.
And is Robert Picardo doing the Doctor?
It sounds like it, yeah. I mean, it sounded an awful lot like him. So, and at one point in the trailer, we do see an older version of Chakotay, because we see his facial tattoos. And, he's sporting white hair, as, Robert Beltran himself is. But, yeah, I'm hoping that obviously Robert is doing the voice if they're bringing Chakotay back at some point. But, yeah, it's kind of interesting how this is sort of, it certainly with the return of Janeway, it kind of had a very Voyager vibe. But now adding the Doctor and obviously the Chakotay part, it really does feel like this is sort of our Picard for Voyager. I'm curious though, obviously we've talked in the past about how this all came about, how, this was supposed to be a Paramount Plus show, and then they decided to cut it for financial reasons, and then Netflix bought it, and it's going to go. And I must admit, I'm curious if this is just going to be, if they've done anything to it to sort of land the plane, if this is going to be come to a logical conclusion where everybody lives happily ever after, or if there is any possibility of going even further with this if it's a success for Netflix.
Mm-hmm. Well, it does. It's a pretty banger trailer. I mean, it's got nice music and it looks exciting, more exciting than I remember the show being,
Yeah, the first season was a little slow burny at times because of the weird, was basically slaves who have escaped, and we're trying to sort of figure out where these people are, but we don't know where they are. It was a little bit more sort of, and as we joked regularly, it's it was Star Trek 101, right? They had to do all these little side quests to basically explore what all these things are and everything else. So this season looks like it's a little more sort of straightforward, let's just dive in. So
cool. Yeah, looks good.
Yeah. Some sad news from today. Iconic Canadian actor Donald Sutherland passed away today. He was 88 years old. Obviously, for everyone, this is an acting legend. I don't think this is just a Canadian pride thing, but obviously we are very proud that Donald is Canadian. But it was really we're kind of starting to lose that generation a little bit. Some of these great lifelong he was acting before I was born. He was in so many iconic roles. Obviously, from a sci-fi side, younger listeners will probably know him as the president in the Hunger Games movies, the four original Hunger Games movies. But, if going back to sort of my boyhood, he was in, the remake of The Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Right, that was a great movie. Yeah.
Yeah, that, and then...
And MASH, he was Hawkeye in MASH.
Well,
he was in a ton of movies that I watched. I mean, he was in Animal House as the cool professor.
He was in JFK. He was in, in this obituary that we'll have linked in our show notes, more than 100 films, all kinds of awards. He won, an Emmy Award, Golden Globes. He was never nominated for an Academy Award, which actually was kind of surprised to find out today. I didn't realize that. But he did receive an honorary Oscar back in 2017. Of course, here in Canada, he's an officer of the Order of Canada. Won Genie Awards, Governor General's Performing Arts Award. So again, he very much was a proud Canadian and represented our country so very well in his craft. So
he just got last year. 6 months ago. They made a stamp with his face on it, and
that's right.
And he asked us to send him a postcard, with the stamp on it, and so I did.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I have two sets. I have one unbroken set, and I have one where one's missing because I sent it to him.
That's great.
I never got a reply though. Oh well.
And also, for those who have been living under a rock, his son is Kiefer Sutherland, of course, who has had his own very illustrious.
And who's career. Who's his? Is it his father or grandfather? Or maybe it's Kiefer's grandfather.
I feel like
Tommy Douglas.
Yeah, I feel like Tommy Douglas was his mom's
right.
Dad. But
Tommy Douglas started. What did he start? OHIP or welfare or something?
Universal Healthcare. He was the creator of Universal Healthcare. So, for all our American friends out there, it was this guy who lived out on the prairies who had the idea that healthcare should be a human right, and basically used politics and the groundswell of public support to create the concept of universal healthcare that's spread across our country. So this is a dynastic family, very, very connected to the sort of very important parts of Canada, and of course, it's all sort of tied together out there. But it's sad to see this generation sort of slipping past us, but man, what a legacy. Like you say, just the movies, the performances, and just so many memorable parts, right? Like he was just, he stood out. I mean, he was a unique looking man, and he just had that great smile, and he had that sort of, when he wanted to go dark, he could go really dark. When he wanted to go funny, he could be super funny. Like he was just a very talented performer, and I think we'll miss him.
Yeah, I think, like I said, he was probably one of my favorite actors. Just about any movie he was in, I've probably seen it, so.
Yeah.
But some weird ones like Castle of the Living Dead and
Yeah.
Die, my darling, and
and again, he worked all over the place, right? Like, he had he wasn't
he was in was it Kelly's Heroes or the one with the with Telly Savalas and Lee Marvin was the general guy. And they had to go to Germany. They had to go to Germany and take over a villa and blow up a bridge.
Oh yeah.
No, not the Magnificent Seven. Oh crap!
I know what you mean. I'm just trying to look through his IMDb here, but
I think I've seen that one.
It was Kelly's Heroes.
Kelly's Heroes. Was that Kelly's Heroes?
Kelly's Heroes, alongside Clint Eastwood and Telly Savalas. Yeah.
Yeah. That's another classic movie from the olden days.
Well, and because he had such a long career, I mean, geez, there's just so many different, like, you realize, I was thinking about, obviously the sci-fi roles, but, some of the roles that stand out to me, he was in a CBC production of the story of Norman Bethune's life, right?
Right. Yes.
Bethune.
Right.
Again, for our American friends, Norman Bethune was a Canadian doctor who basically devoted his life to trying to save lives in China back when China was going through its revolution.
Cultural revolution, yeah.
And, he was sort of one of the all-time, Canadian humanitarians. So that was a really amazing performance. And then he was also in this great HBO series or movie called Citizen X, where he played this Russian commander who was trying to help catch a serial killer. And that one really stood out to me. I remember watching that movie when I was younger. It was in the 90s. And just being like amazed at this story. It was basically how, the communist government in Soviet Union didn't want to reveal the fact that they had a serial killer in their midst because that was a decadent American phenomenon. And so he was this like severely important general who basically like helped this detective try and keep the case rolling and try and catch this guy. And eventually when Perestroika happens, he's like, oh, here's all the resources. And they ended up catching this guy. And he was really great in that. Really, really good performance.
Another recent performance, he played John Paul Getty in the movie about the grandson that gets kidnapped.
Yep.
Trust.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
I'm trying to think here too. He so one of my favorite authors is Robert Heinlein, and he wrote the movie with the bugs in it. But I thought he was in the Puppet Masters.
You mean Starship Troopers, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Starship Troopers was a great movie and a great book. They ruined the movie. The movie ruined it. But...
Well, they basically turned the movie. It became a satire, right?
Yeah. But I think it was. But he had another book called Puppet Masters. I'm pretty sure that Donald Sutherland was in that one too. They don't. It's funny. They don't show a lot of his filmography. It's kind of like it stops at for some reason. Oh, it seems to stop around 2002, which can't be right.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean he worked right up until the last few years. Yeah.
Yeah, no, but I mean like 2002. I mean like you and I were just talking about movies that were done in the 80s and 70s, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. He's working in the 60s.
Yeah. That day.
Absolutely. Well, here's some brighter news. One of my all-time favorite movies may be getting a sequel. Mm-hmm. There was word this week that a sequel to the movie Spaceballs, a classic Mel Brooks satire of science fiction that included very funny takes on Star Wars characters, aliens, all the sort of tropes of the 70s and 80s sci-fi movies. So Josh Gad, who people will know from a lot of different performances, most famously, I think, as the Olaf the Snowman in Frozen, is probably his biggest role. He was also he was on the Broadway production of Book of Mormon, and he's done countless movies over the years. But he is apparently set to star and produce alongside Mel Brooks in this finally long-awaited sequel. The movie came back in, I think it was 1986 the movie came out, or 87. So it'll be interesting to see how they're approaching this. Some of the cast are still with us. Some of the cast aren't. Obviously, we have Bill Pullman is still with us, and Daphne Zuniga is still with us. Rick Moranis is still with us, but he's not acting anymore. John Candy was in it, and of course, John has passed away. I can't help but think that as a large man himself, Josh might make a good Barf the Mog. And then Brooks was also in it himself as President Scroob and Yogurt, the Yoda-esque character. I don't know if he's up for reprising those roles at the age of 99, but possible.
The robot was what's her name? It was
Joan Rivers.
Comedian.
Joan Rivers.
Yeah, Joan Rivers.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see if this comes to pass, and obviously how they're approaching this. If it's going to be sort of a take where they don't include some of those characters, or they do include some of those characters. But I'm excited. I enjoyed the History of the World Part 2 that they did a few years ago on I guess it was last year on TV, and I'll be interested to see if this actually comes to pass. I was in the sweet spot for Mel Brooks movies, so obviously he was making movies when I was born, but he was making great movies right up into the 90s that's for me are indelible. And we were talking about this recently, so we just got a new puppy last week, and the puppy's name is Mel, and he's named Mel for Mel Brooks and Mel Blanc, two of my very favorite.
Oh, he's Mel, not Melvin?
Well, his name is Melvin, which is the same.
Okay.
That's the full name that Mel Brooks and Mel Blanc are. Mel Brooks' real name is Melvin Kaminsky, and Mel Blanc was Mel Blanc. And yeah, so we named our dog Melvin after these two wonderful creators. And so yeah, as somebody who's clearly that passionate about this creator, I'm excited. I'm excited to see if they can pull this off. Great trailer dropped earlier today. We got our first kind of fulsome trailer for Penguin, the spin-off HBO series coming from Matt Reeves's The Batman movie from a few years back. It is actually, interesting to see this trailer because it seems to be coming right in the aftermath of the events of the Batman movie, and it kind of picks up what's happening in Gotham in the crime world and in the city in the wake of obviously the Riddler and all the stuff that happens in that movie, and the sort of appearance of the Batman, but focused on this character of the Penguin, who we see as obviously a mid-level crime boss, and it's sort of about his now in this sort of void, and given what happened with the Falcone family in the Batman movie, him trying to sort of swoop in and become this higher level crime boss. Colin Farrell, of course, with a lot of makeup and prosthetics on, playing this extremely handsome man, playing this very sort of scarred and obese character, and it looks really interesting. Like, it looks a lot like it could have just been filmed at the same time that they were making the Batman. I mean, Reeves' movie definitely has a visual style, and so this looks pretty cool. What'd you think?
No, it looks good. I mean, again, he was unrecognizable as in the Batman, right? Like, and it's funny. So, just it does look good. But what I want to ask though is, okay, so this is DC Comics, right?
Yeah.
So where does the Penguin starring Joaquin Phoenix and the Penguin starring
the Joker, the yeah,
no, the Joker, okay, it's different character,
okay. Yeah, they've been pretty clear that the Batman, the Matt Reeves sort of stuff is in its own little pocket. It's not tied into the larger continuity. They've also said the same thing about the Joker. So they're kind of mutually exclusive from the reboot that we're getting starting next year with James Gunn. I think the idea is they announced recently they're going to film the Batman 2 and the Batman 3 concurrently or at least back to back, so that they can get them moving quickly. I think the idea is they want to let Reeves tell his story. They want them to work, but I think they also want to take Batman and move him into that James Gunn universe. And so they'll probably start with a new Batman and a new part of that. So yeah, I mean, so
which one's James Gunn's universe? This one or the other one?
Well, this is Matt Reeves.
Okay.
The James Gunn is basically the reboot they're going to start. So they're basically wiping away everything else. There's going to be no before, none of the Man of Steel, Justice League. None of that stuff is going to be in a new part of continuity. They're basically starting fresh with the new Superman movie that's scheduled to come out in 2025.
Okay.
And then, but that's supposed to have all kinds of other characters in it. It's going to spin into a whole rebooted thing. And they're hoping that James, as obviously he made these terrific movies in the Guardians of the Galaxy, will be the one who can make something for DC that sticks as opposed to some hits and some misses.
Oh, I see. Right. Yeah. So, and this is Oswald Cobblepot?
Cobblepot, yeah.
Cobblepot. Yeah, this is the character that becomes the Penguin, right?
Yeah.
And is he like an Arkham Asylum patient guy, whatever?
In this iteration, they don't seem to be going that route. They are taking more of the,
he's a crime boss kind of thing, right?
He worked his way up in the crime world. He's kind of an odd, looking person, and hence the nickname, but he's not what you call criminally insane. As a matter of fact, the way that he's being played by Farrell, he seems like he is extremely shrewd and extremely able to sort of work a lot of angles. So it's a different take on the character. It's a take that has been done a few times in the comic books, where he's not just Burgess Meredith chomping on a cigarette while holding an umbrella. So yeah, different.
Who was iconic, I gotta say.
He was, absolutely. And that version of the character is absolutely iconic. But this is just, as they do with a lot of these things, it's just let's twist things a little bit and see how it turns out. And I like this iteration. And again, I thought he was fantastic. I think you're right. Like, if you hadn't told me that was Colin Farrell, I'd have no idea. I mean, other than the fact that Colin is a very talented performer, like, yeah, I mean, he doesn't look anything like himself. And, you know, the accent, the makeup, the whole thing, like, he is really, really different than his normal appearance, but he's killing it in that role. So this looks great. Yeah. Last thing I've got on here. So we're constantly talking about our streaming services. We talked a little bit in a recent episode about the idea that, you know, movie theaters, there used to be a law that basically said that, like, movie studios can't own movie theaters because the idea was that it would be a little bit hard if there was, you know, one studio that played just the studio's movies and didn't play other things. They could basically gatekeep and it would become really complicated. I think Jaime raised that law has been changed and now they're opening the door to that. And we got news this week that Netflix has announced the first two cities it's going to have these new, they're calling them experiences, but essentially it's a theater with some other, you know, amenities in it. They are called Netflix houses, and there's going to be one opening in King of Prussia, Pennsylvania, which is essentially Philadelphia, and Dallas, Texas. They're going to have, it says, you know, shopping outlets, eateries, activities tied to their franchises like Bridgerton, Stranger Things, Squid Game. So it's kind of like, you know, a celebration of Netflix in real life. Yeah, I'm curious to see what this is. I guess it was last week we were talking about how Sony had bought the Alamo Drafthouse and the possibility that they could sort of, you know, turn that into their own sort of special way to show special movies and stuff like that. It'd be interesting to see because Netflix does make, you know, Oscar-worthy and Oscar-winning movies. You know, Coda from a few years ago was a Netflix movie. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if this is sort of a trend, if we start to see more of these pop up. It says they're looking at more than 100,000 square feet. So, like, this is a big venue. Curious to see what this is and what this means and how this could affect how they're, you know, showing and or sharing their product.
Yeah, it's interesting that a company that started out like going against bricks and mortar is now come around to bricks and mortar.
Absolutely.
Ironically.
Yeah. Yeah. Who knows? Maybe you'll
be able to. Does that mean Blockbuster's going to go online now?
Yeah, really. Welcome to the Blockbuster channel. I'm genuinely surprised no one has taken that IP for something like Blockbuster and made a streaming service. It's a brand. You like
or Jumbo Video. Do you remember that?
For
one
sure.
Too?
Yeah, like all those things. It seems like they would be a brand that people know. Brand is getting people to brand buy-in is one of the hardest things in marketing. If you know the brand already, like, yeah, again, why come up with something?
You know.
Well, yep. Why come up with something called Tubi or, you know, Roku, or you could just be Blockbuster. People know Blockbuster.
Yeah. I heard about Tubi on the news the other day. Actually, you know.
Yeah. I signed up for it. Again, it's free, but it's ad supported, so you have to watch the ads. But there's content on there that there isn't in other places, and I've certainly, you know, sat and watched a few movies and a few shows and stuff.
Well, a friend of mine went over to work there, so a former colleague, I guess.
Nice.
More app description, but yeah, that's how I knew about it.
Yeah.
All right, we're at the main part of the show where we talk about whatever we're going to talk about. This week we're talking about a couple of things, but the first one up is Star Wars: The Acolyte, Season 1, Episode 4, Day.
Yes.
I thought they had two names last couple of times.
Well, they didn't. They did for the first two episodes, but I think that was supposed to show the duality of perspective between May and Osha. The last two episodes, episodes 3 and 4, they've just had one, and I think it's because we're kind of not in their individual perspectives on it. But I wonder if we'll see more coming as we go.
Cool. So what's your elevator pitch?
Well, in the spirit of them dispatching a large number of unnamed Jedi on this mission, and the episode ending with this sort of cliffhanger of all these Jedi about to leap into battle against what appears to be a Sith, my elevator pitch was simply, what's the Jedi equivalent to red shirts?
Right.
Because this looks like it's going to go very poorly for the people who did not get a name in the last episode.
Mine is the girl who cried wolf.
Yeah.
Because, you know, the spoilers if you haven't seen it, but May kind of turns around and changes her approach to things and walks into a Lucille Ball type conundrum, right? Where, it doesn't matter how good she decides to be, she's still going to be seen as the bad person, right? So,
yeah. It was.
And your theory from a couple of weeks ago about who the Sith guy is I think it's 100% on.
Yeah, so we'll circle back to that because I do have that in my questions because I think there's some stuff to discuss in there. But yeah, it would be very, very weird if it wasn't. But anyways, we'll circle back to that. Pew pew pew. It was a little light on the pew 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 in this episode. I think that last scene was probably the most exciting pew 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 we got, which is, of course, yes, this sort of Sith descending down and all of the Jedi igniting their different colored lightsabers and basically just sort of leaping into a fade to black. We didn't get a lot of, actual pew pew, but it was pretty cool to see like 8 or 9 Jedi just crack their lightsabers and leap at a problem. We really haven't seen that sort of volume of Jedi involved in a fight since maybe Attack of the Clones. There was definitely some ignited lightsabers in Revenge of the Sith, but they were by children, and that didn't go well. So,
yeah.
Did you have any other pew pew sections? Anything else you thought was?
Yeah, no, not really heavy on the pew pew, like you said. I mean, just trying to think here what.
It was a bit of a glue episode, right? This one was really, it was about kind of getting them from point A to point B, revealing a little bit more about, Osha and May, as you say.
Who's the guy that plays Kilnaka and Chewbacca?
Eunice Saltomo?
Yeah, he didn't really get many lines, and he's not going to have many lines in this one.
Yeah. That's, hey, what's a 7 foot tall guy going to do for work? So this is good.
Yeah.
Can't make the NBA? Here you go. Yeah. Easter eggs. This was a great Easter egg episode. When in the very first scene when Kalnaka, we basically go into this sort of half technological, half organic space that Kalnaka's living in exile on this planet. And right next to where he's sitting, we see a bowcaster, which is kind of cool. Although it did immediately perk in my mind, what does a Jedi need a bowcaster for? But you can make a case it's for hunting or, obviously.
Yeah, well, he's a traditionalist, right? That was Chewbacca's weapon too, right?
It was, and it's a traditional Wookiee weapon, but it's kind of interesting that, and this is a Wookiee who is like got his head shaved, in a more Jedi style fashion, and obviously wields a lightsaber, but still has a bowcaster. But that was still pretty cool to see. We did get a couple of old school Jedi creep in. We got a young Ki-Adi-Mundi in one of the scenes. So he obviously, by the time we see the Phantom Menace, Ki-Adi-Mundi is a Jedi master and a Jedi master on the Jedi Council. So obviously rises up the ranks. We know that his race is very long lived, so that's not a surprise to see him at this point.
How far back in this past is this supposed to be?
I believe this is supposed to be 100 years or more before the Phantom Menace. So
I mean, this was the character. This was named as the character.
I checked to sort of see correspond. That one they confirmed. The other one that we see is it looks like one of the people on this mission with them is Plo Koon. Plo Koon, very obviously instantly recognizable, especially for fans who got into the Clone Wars. He was one of the Jedi Knights who was most active in the Clone Wars. Got a little bit more of his character fleshed out. He is sort of notable because his species can't breathe air like the humanoids in this show, so he wears this big mask on his face. And that there are some people saying, oh, for sure it's Plo Koon, timing works out, same thing, it's a long-lived race, so that's Plo Koon. Some people are saying no, it's just a different Keldor, which is the species that he belongs to. So either way, it was kind of a kick to see, those two characters creep in. I've seen a few people on different spots sort of saying, well, of course, the characters that could easily show up are Yoda, because Yoda is, hundreds of years old and obviously would still be very active in the Jedi community at this point. And Yaddle, the female species of Yoda species that we got a little bit more explored in the Tales of the Jedi cartoon series that came out last year. We learned a little bit more about Yaddle.
So I was thinking about the guy with the four heads. You know, not the
Ki-Adi-Mundi, or
Ki-Adi-Mundi, isn't that he's
the guy who's got the really tall head?
Oh, okay. Well, how come they've got? Oh, he plays a different character in another show. I guess they've got a different picture of him in. No, I don't think is that. So they've got Master Ki-Adi-Mundi, and they've got him playing a character in. This what the hell is this? It's Force Awakens, I guess, right? He's the little character. Or the
no, he's tall. He's tall and has a very tall head. He like almost looks like a cone head.
We got to go in and fix IMDb because I got the wrong picture here or the wrong actor.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. But yeah, anyways, it's I've heard people sort of clamoring a little bit for like, wow, it'd be great if we could see more of, you know, like in this era, we know Yoda's around. I disagree. I'm even these ones. I was like, you know, of course it's a nice little Easter egg, and of course it's nice to have these little, you know, of course they exist in this time frame. But I would find it distracting. If Yoda showed up, I would find it distracting. It doesn't need to happen. So I'd be fine without that.
I'm just calling up the Acolyte. Yeah, that's who I thought it was. Okay.
Yeah,
but yeah, IMDb's got the wrong dude in the picture and the wrong actor. I think the actor they've got here is the one who was playing the little sort of badgery character.
Oh, right, yeah. Was it
Oh, short guy.
Yeah, I wrote it down here.
What was his name?
I know, right here. His name is Basil, and he's a Tynan. Yeah, Basil's a gopher man. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think IMDb's got the wrong dude in the wrong place. Yeah, no, this is the forehead dude that I was talking about.
Yeah. They did actually, for what it's worth, the Tynan, the gopher people, they were actually something that was dragged out of the original expanded universe. They first appeared in an old novel from the late 70s, these trackers, but they've never been incorporated into continuity until now. So this is both a first appearance and also kind of an Easter egg, so flag it in there. Mm-hmm. But obviously, Basil's a new character. I hope Basil survives this fight because you know he's cute. The best quotes. I thought the egging on that Chimere did with May as they're like trekking through the jungle to try and find Kelnaka, where he says, you know, well, you failed so much, or he says, I'm just curious how you're going to do it this time. I mean, you've failed so much in trying to basically what we established is what we kind of had guessed is that the move of stealing a lightsaber that she's tried with a few of the different Jedi that she's killed. She tried it obviously in the first episode. She tried it in the second episode. We see that she's trying to do that. And the reasoning is she says basically, if you take away a Jedi's lightsaber and then you kill them when they're unarmed, it goes against everything the Jedi stand for, and therefore that is part of your sort of final test. Your final lesson is to kill without mercy and to kill somebody who is basically defenseless. Yeah. So that was interesting. Soul talking about May to Osha. There's still good in her. That part of her that still loves you. Again, though, there is still good in her line. Obviously, a callback to what we've heard. Luke talking about his dad and Return of the Jedi. The idea that being lost to the dark side doesn't mean you're lost forever, right? And Jackie earlier on when she's talking to May, we are not defined by what we lose. We are defined by what we survive. I thought that was very poignant and well delivered line. The big question. So we talked about Chimere being the likely suspect. And in this episode, the fact that he knows where Kelnaka is on the planet and is separated from May, conveniently separated from May. Like Pokeroo, right? When Kelnaka dies, or is more to the point, murdered, is slashed through clearly with a lightsaber, and isn't there when we see this Sith in this very dark mask show up. All of those things look like they're very obviously meant to sort of, paint that Chimere looks like the likely suspect. That being said, I wonder if that's just simply too easy, but it does seem pretty obvious that that's what they're hinting towards. And just through that whole part when they're walking together, he is egging her on. He is trying to make her mad. And that is part of what the Sith do, right? They basically push you towards hatred and anger and fear, so that your, more negative emotions will take over and lure you further into the dark side. So all of those pieces of evidence definitely lean towards, Chimere being the actual big bad in this. And we've never seen them in the same room at the same time. So there's that. The other one...
so for the Americans out there with the Pokeroo references, we used to have a TV show for kids on, and in like 6 o'clock in the evening, I think it was, or just before dinner time. And there would always be a host and a guest, and the guest would always kind of disappear conveniently. And then Pokeroo would come out with this big giraffe kind of character. And then
there's a kangaroo,
Pokeroo would leave, and all he would say was Pokeroo, Pokeroo.
Yeah.
And he would leave, and he would come back. And
you just missed him.
You just missed him, yeah.
Yeah, Snuffleupagus is another good comparison, right? The idea of,
right.
Oh no, you just missed Snuffleupagus. The other possibility that occurred to me as watching this, and then as soon as I took a look to see if anybody else had the same thought, tons of people had the same thought, so I'm not an original thinker in this case, but I found myself thinking about it as I finished this episode. Who else, where are we? Who else would make sense? And I was thinking about, the part in the 3rd episode where Mother Coral, who is the one who actually carried the twins to term.
Okay.
Who looks like Darth Maul. She's got she's an Iridonian Zabrak, and she's got those little spikes on her head. I thought to myself, it's funny because, she basically takes May outside so that Mother Anastasia can take Osha aside and talk to her. And I thought, I wonder if she's outside basically like spurring May on with negative thoughts, so that's why she comes back in and says, I'll kill you. I wonder if that is because she's basically been like pushed to a dark place by Mother Coral.
Yeah.
And then that made me think, I wonder, because there's that overhead shot in episode 3 when Soul comes in and saves Osha, and we see May fall into the chasm, and then they run through the part of the temple that they're in, and we see all the dead sisters lying on the ground. I wonder what's going on there. And I thought, okay, I'm going to call it back up. So I called it back up on my screen, paused it, and Mother Coral's not in that pile of bodies. She's just not. She's not one of those people.
Really?
Okay. Distinctively not there. And so
was the other mother there?
The other mother was there. Because Osha makes a point of saying, oh my God, there's my mom. And we see a lot of the other witches, but we do not see Mother Coral. So that tweaked for me. I was like, hey, maybe
she started the fire or whatever.
Well,
or fire worse.
Or that's it. And so as I explored this theory, we saw that the scene where they're at the Ascension and the Jedi come in, and Anastasia is trying to basically get the Jedi to take off, and she takes over the mind of what was the young man's name? The one that died last in episode 2. Torben, that's right. Torben, when the Padawan. She takes over his mind. You see his eyes go black, and she's taken him over. And so I wondered, and I've seen other people suspect this as well, I wonder if what happens is that Coral uses that power to take control of one or some or all of the Jedi and has them go crazy and kill all those witches.
Oh, interesting. So when did his eyes go black?
It's the scene where they're at the Ascension. The 4 Jedi show up and they're standing there. They call the girls out and stuff like that. And it seems like they're basically, going to get their Jedi away. Anastasia basically takes control near the end of that scene. He takes control of Torben, and you see Torben basically go rigid and his eyes turn black. And she basically says, if you want, your Padawan to make it out of this okay, get out of here. And they're like, no. And because we see them like it's going to go off. And then she releases him, and Torben's sort of shocked by that. But it just, seeing that ability to take over someone's mind and make them do things against their will made me think, okay, maybe this is actually our suspect. Maybe Mother Coral is actually the person behind this, because one, we see her saying to Anastasia in episode 3, you need to be harder, you need to be tougher, you need to be more ruthless with these girls, we need to push them. And then we also see her take May outside. So right before the scene where May comes in and is like, I'm not going to let you leave. I'll kill you first. So,
Oh, maybe she took her over.
Maybe, or maybe she just like said dark things to a child and the child was like, yeah, I'm going to go get her. And then, yeah, the fact that we see all these dead witches, they don't look like they just like, they're not crushed under a rock. They're all just lying there. I wonder if Coral or someone else took control of the Jedi, and maybe that's why they all feel guilty, is because they were there, they were used against their will, and they killed all these people. Maybe that's what the big mystery is. So I don't know. Chimera seems like a really obvious suspect, and it would make a lot of sense. And again, Manny Jacinto is a well-known actor, and he's playing it very much like he is in the know. But right. As I was watching this, it really occurred to me, yeah, maybe this makes more sense. Maybe Mother Coral had something to do with this, or it could have just been any of, like, it could have been Anasea, it could have been like anyone, but I just couldn't help but think. And the other part that kind of caught me is the person in the dark mask that shows up at the end of the episode, the Sith, we'll call them for the sake of argument, wasn't any bigger than Osha.
Right. Oh, right. Yeah.
It wasn't somebody. It didn't look like a man. It didn't look like somebody who was big. Now, Manny Jacinto's not a huge dude either, but it didn't look like somebody who was.
Well, it was meant to look like almost like a droid, almost like the helmet, right? So
yeah, and I didn't get the impression this was like Darth Vader. This isn't like somebody. This isn't Dooku. This isn't a large person. It seemed like somebody a little more diminutive, which again could be Chimera, could be Coral, could be somebody else. But some of the other theories that are floating around out there, maybe this is Darth Plagueis, who was Palpatine's master. Maybe this is, some other obscure Sith character from the expanded canon and stuff like that they're bringing in, or maybe it's an all new character. So again, I think this is, as a mystery, this show has been really interesting, trying to piece together not just the whodunit, what, man behind the mask, always a fun thing to do, but the what happened, the what really happened, what's the truth, why does May want revenge, why do these Jedi feel like they deserve or don't deserve to die. The 3 out of the 4 are dead now, so yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this continues to come together.
So
I can feel your brain percolating now. You're thinking,
yeah, I don't know. Forget what I was thinking.
All right. Well, I've overwhelmed Tim.
Oh, no, I was going to ask you. So how many episodes are we looking at in this series? Is it 8 or 10?
I think it's 8.
Or 6?
I'll have to double check.
Which one is this? This is the 5th or 6th?
This was 4. This was 4.
Right.
Yeah. So we got the first 2 drops simultaneously. Then we got the flashback episode, and this was the first one going forward. Let me just see.
What day does it come out on?
Tuesdays at 9 o'clock Eastern time.
Yeah, weird time. Yeah. Yeah, it was another one where I just flipped on the TV and went, oh, look, what's on?
How many episodes will The Acolyte be? The Acolyte's first season will include a total of 8 episodes.
Okay, so we're halfway.
We are halfway to the mystery. Yeah.
Cool. Well, we're running out of Jedi, though.
Well, again, they reloaded on the Jedi. They brought a bunch of them with them.
No, I know, but they're all red shirts, like you said. Like the only ones that really matter are Saul and Kilnaka, but now we're down to just Saul, right?
Yeah. And then again, obviously we've got Jecki and Cord, like the ones that are sort of the new generation. So, we could obviously, some of those might, we might lose as we go through this too. But yeah, I have a feeling all those red shirt Jedis are not going to make it through the first 5 minutes of the next episode.
Right. Gotcha.
Because if you're going to show a Sith character just sort of drop in on a bunch of Jedi, it's got to go pretty brutally. So look forward to that.
Let's move on to Doctor Who.
Mm-hmm. Who?
Yeah, season 1, episode 8, because it's only been on for 1 season out of all the 60 years it's been on.
Thank you, Disney Plus.
The Legend of Ruby Sunday, which kind of is interesting that it wasn't called Ruby Tuesday for Jaime's sake, right? Yeah, and so this is the one where what's her name, Susan Twist shows up as the leading candidate or something like that, or famous television person.
She's a tech CEO, right? She's supposed to be this like tech CEO who's supposed to be, the Steve Jobsy, Bill Gatesy kind of like
Elon Musky
kind of, tech savior kind of person. But as the doctor goes back to unit and sort of says, this person's face keeps popping up everywhere, something's going on, this is all connected. So this is really where all these little clues have been leading us all season, right? And we definitely get the like a pretty intense episode. It sort of starts out a little bit lighthearted. The doctor shows up at unit, they meet some of the new characters, it's kind of fun, and then it starts to get darker and darker and darker and darker. The next door neighbor who is like actually a secret sleeper agent inside of Ruby's building that's now with her grandmother, and there's like a lot of stuff going on there, and it basically sort of culminates that this is actually the big bad, the he who waits that we've been getting allusions to since back in the holiday or the anniversary specials rather. We finally find out who that is. What can you tell us about Sutek?
Well, Sutek, I mean, to be honest with you, I don't know much about him, but I did do some research because I saw the name of the actor, and his voice is Gabriel Wolf, who is currently 92 years old. So it turns out that this actor played Sutek back with the second Doctor, Tom Baker, or the second Doctor season. What is the second Doctor Who series? It's probably the fourth. Tom Baker was the fourth Doctor in 1975. And the Sutek character shows up, but then it also was in 2006, which is the sort of the in-between years before the reboot. And then 2024 is where he's turned up again. So this character is kind of one of they kind of pulled this one out of it's a deep cut character, I guess, right? So, but it's interesting. I guess they just, because it sounded a bit to me like the guy who did the voice of the Dalek leader, right? I'm drawing a blank on that now. Ugh. But because that's who I thought it was initially when I first heard him on screen, but it turns out it's a different actor. So. But yeah, but that's apparently the one who waits is him.
Yeah.
And the Sutek character.
Yeah, I'm hoping obviously next episode, which I believe is the season finale, will give us a little bit more of, the significance of this and sort of maybe some of the history, but, obviously played up by Ncuti Gatwa as, this is a big deal. This is scary. This is somebody we've encountered before. This is somebody who's going to really mess this up. And so it, as I say, it turned from like sort of an interesting sort of lighter episode and got darker and darker, darker, and sort of ends with, this is bad. Like this is, and we see Mrs. Twist show up as this tech thing, and then turns into this sort of the harbinger, and we see like all this sort of these things that now they're out for blood. So I'm guessing we're going to see a lot of pew pew pewing with sonic screwdriver.
Well, this is a to be continued episode too, which is really
I mean not that they all aren't in their own way, but this was a very much a like cliffhanger ending. Yeah.
Come on back.
Was it worth the build up to you? Do you feel like this was like a good reveal? Like the problem with Doctor Who is like you both want to be respectful of the 60 years of history, but you also want to tell good stories. If this is something from the Doctor Who past, I'm sure there are longtime Who fans are like, oh my God, that's amazing. And some of us are like, I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, well, I mean, like again, the big bads in Doctor Who are the Dalek, the Cyberman, and the Master, right? Yeah. And the Master and Missy and the Mistress, right? Mm-hmm. Those are sort of the big challenging. And then of course there's the Stone Angels and what's the one, The Quiet from Matt Smith's era, where they got the invisible giant aliens with big heads.
Oh, right, yeah.
Like the Horror, the Quiet or something like that, right?
Yeah, the one that still chilled the heck out of me was the one from the Tennant era, was the Silent Angels, right? That's like the creepiest.
Yeah, the Screaming Angels. Yeah,
that is the scariest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, if you blink, they move. They get closer to you.
Yeah, God, those episodes were genuinely chilling.
Yeah, they were pretty creepy.
Just the idea that like you can't blink. Every time you close your eyes to blink, they move closer to you. Like, dear God, that's so gross.
Yeah. But let me just see here. Which Doctor Who do I want to look at? Too many Doctor Who's.
And some say that's a barrier to access. Hence, that's why we have new season number 1.
Yeah. Oh, really? The fact that there's so many of the old ones?
I think the idea of calling them season 1 on Disney Plus is to not terrify the people who have never really gotten into Doctor Who before and aren't like, oh, do I have to watch the last 60 years worth first?
Yeah. By the way, I saw a picture too on the socials of Peter Capaldi and
I saw
John
that
Pertwee.
One. Yeah, that's such a great picture, eh?
Yeah, the fact that he was a fan and he got to meet his doctor back then.
Yeah, it's funny because I knew that he was a fan. I didn't realize he was like that fan. Apparently, the reason he got that opportunity is because he wrote so many letters. They were like, this guy must be our biggest fan. We should bring him in, which I thought was really fun. Okay,
I found a picture of the character I'm talking about and just seeing if they'll tell me. The prequel to on the shores of Lake Silencio. Ooh. Interesting. Where's the plot synopsis? I think this is a not a canon piece, but interesting that they got a picture of this dude. Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's from the Matt Smith series of Doctors. I'm going to go with The Silence. I think that's the name of it. Yeah. Cool. Yeah. And only certain people can see them, kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, looking forward to see where this goes. I have a feeling that we're not going to get a Hold My Beer, Wrap It Up in One Go episode. It feels like this is more of an ongoing kind of villain. It would be really disappointing after all this buildup if it was just, we landed this and the season's over, and like it feels like it's got to carry forward. So this week we also got a couple shows coming back for us.
Yeah, the House of the Dragon.
Mm-hmm. And quite the banging start.
Yeah, so the episode is called "A Son for a Son." So I guess the question, so the thing is that they go to try to take revenge on. But at the end of, I think, the last couple of seasons or last couple of episodes, one of the boys is killed. It's kind of an accident. They were in a dragon fight, and the character with the eye patch who lost his eye. What was his name?
Aemond.
He lost his eye in a battle or a fight with these kids when they were younger or something like that.
Yeah.
And his dragon, he kind of, I guess he loses control of his dragon, and the dragon just kind of chomps down on the young
Jace, or
Jace
Luke.
Prince.
Sorry, this is Luke. Yeah, Luke,
and he dives, and of course that sets. Or is it Rhaenyra?
Rhaenyra is his mom. So you're right. It was basically like they made a point. I rewatched the entire first season the last couple of weeks to try and sort of refresh. And it's funny the things you pick up on a second watch where at one point, they talk about the dragons and we've got more dragons. Dragons go to war. And Rhaenyra says to Daemon, most of these dragons have never been to war. They don't know how to fight like dragons in war. And one of those dragons that doesn't know how to fight in war is the one that's ridden by Luke. And so when Aemond is sort of chasing him and, obviously he's trying to terrorize him. He's not trying to kill him, but he's trying to scare him. His dragon, which is the largest dragon in the world, has been to war before, but the little one, which is Arax, that is being ridden by Luke, doesn't. So Arax takes a shot at this gigantic dragon, and that one responds by just biting him and killing both Luke and Arax. So this episode really picks up with, Rhaenyra has gotten the news that her son is dead and her son's dragon is dead, but hasn't really got the proof yet, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we see her kind of off trying to sort of find that proof, try and find out what happened, and she gets it. I didn't realize it at the time, but I saw people commenting online. There's the scene where Rhaenyra gets a bit of that closure, where she goes and she sees some fishermen have hauled in their nets.
Yeah, she finds her son's cloak and the wing.
Yeah, so she finds these parts, that confirm, obviously this is what happened. And you see her obviously crying, but you also see the dragon crying or making these sort of sad, mournful notes. And I didn't realize it until I saw people commenting on it, but that dragon was actually the mother of the dragon that died.
Oh, really?
So it was actually two
Oh.
mothers grieving for their two lost children, which I thought was, again, it's a shame in the show that you don't get a little bit more of that connectivity to understand. But when you know that, you're like, oh God, that's so sad. Like, that's just, it's even more devastating. Not only have you lost, you know, the boy, but, you know, the boy dragon, right? Like, so very sad. But yeah, I mean, this episode kind of picks up really where we left off last season. It's sort of, you know, the consequences of that action. All the people on Team Green are freaking out because they're like, oh God, what are they going to do now? We just killed one of their kids. And so we really see the, you know, the steps are being taken to, you know, ramp up. So we've got, you know, the fleet and the dragons. Melisse, the dragon, is basically flying around trying to enforce a blockade. So the idea is basically they're trying to keep goods from coming into King's Landing, you know, which is, as far as war tactics go, pretty tame. You know, like the idea is that, you know, oh, you're not going to be able to get all the, you know, food you need and whatever.
Yeah, it's a siege, right?
It's a siege, but in, you know, obviously not in an aggressive way. But you know, in finding this cloak that belonged to her son and finding this wing and confirming it, Rhaenyra comes back to the castle and sort of says, you know, I want Aemond, and I want Aemond dead for what he did to my son. And of course, our well-intentions, possible question mark, quasi-villain, quasi-gray hero Daemon decides, yeah, I'm gonna do this for my wife / niece, which icky. Goes to King's Landing and hires these two half-witted, you know, folks to go in and says to them, hey, there's a guy in there. He's the prince's, you know, he's one of the princes. He's got an eye patch. You won't miss him. Go in there and kill him and bring me his head. And these two halfwits go into the castle, can't find their way around, don't know where they're going, end up in the room where King Aegon's wife is.
So it's the king's wife.
That's the king's wife, and the crown prince. The little boy is the crown prince. Instead of going looking for Aemond, they basically make this poor woman choose, you know, to tell them which one is the boy, because they were told to bring back, you know, a son for a son.
Is it a boy and a girl?
There's a boy and a girl, yes.
Oh, really? Okay. So she
but they're both Targaryens, so they have like long silver hair. So
yeah.
And so she basically has to like point out which one is their son, and the two guys cut that child's head off while it's still alive. In one of the darker moments of Game of Thrones.
But it is the boy that she points to, not the girl?
It is. So I was saying on our Slack channel this week, in our spoiler zone, we're talking about it in the book version of this. I have not finished the books, but I do know some of the stuff that happened in the book version of this is even darker. Essentially, these two guys end up taking a bunch of people hostage, and they basically, Sophie's Choice, the mom, you decide which one of your two children we're going to murder. And they basically say, you know, you have to choose. She chooses one of them, and they say, do you hear that, kid? Your mom wanted you dead, and they kill the other one in front of her. So it's even worse than what we saw. And again, not that there's degrees of child murder, but you know, it's.
We also didn't see too, like they did it off screen.
That's it. I mean, you hear the noises, which are disturbing enough, but
you're going to find out in the next episode when they deliver the head to Daemon, and he goes, "What the?"
Yeah, and again, so you know, we saw the rage, the fury, the anger that we saw on Rhaenyra both at the end of last season and the beginning of this season, when she knows that this Team Green, who she already had no love for, have now killed one of her children. Now, of course, her blood is up, but this is going to get the blood of Aegon and Team Green going for, they just went in there and butchered my child. So this has gone from, you know, this isn't very good to like this.
It's gone from Game of Thrones to Game of Thrones.
It has.
Basically.
This is essentially a red wedding moment, right? This is a milestone moment where it's now very personal and very much people want to kill each other. Not just I want to be on the crown or on the throne. I want my throne. This is I want to kill you. So this is where we really start seeing the Game of Thrones, the real War of the Dragons start, just kicking off. So this episode, it kind of did start a little slow. Like as episodes go, they were introducing some characters. They're kind of checking in all these different places. But yeah, I think starting next week, we're really going to start seeing it ramp up. We're going to start seeing, a lot of dragon fights, a lot of war, a lot of, this season is going to be a banger of the actual war. Last season, I liked the fact that they told us the story in chunks. It was a little hard to follow sometimes because they make these time jumps and you kind of have to catch up. No more of that. No, we're not doing the time jumps really at this point. What we're doing is just we're going to war. So this season is going to be, here are your players, off we go. Were you happy with this as the return? Were you surprised when you got to that scene?
Not really, no. But I thought it was good, a good sort of episode from like in terms of like it really is a compelling show, right? So, and it's the Rhaenyra character, sees herself as the queen, not just as a mother, right? So she, she kind of like. And the thing about it is like the two mothers, like they grew up together. Yeah, they kind of grew up together, and they're trying, they're trying to be respectful of each other, right? And I think Rhaenyra is kind of being a wise queen and saying, we just don't go in there with guns ablazing. But now her son has been killed for whatever reason, because we don't know, like nobody's done a crossing. There was no trial, there was no investigation, there was no homicide cop who went over and questioned everybody to find out what the degree of intent was, right?
Yeah.
From watching the scene that Armand, how do you say his name again? Aemond. Yeah. He says, "Oh no," when it happens. Like it's not like I didn't. It's not like I meant. He doesn't do a fist pump. He kind of goes, "Oops," Well,
and again, I think he genuinely intended to terrorize Luke. I think he genuinely, if he could have,
he was teasing his younger cousin. Well, yeah, exactly.
I think he genuinely, if he could have, he would have had him. Like he at one point before they get on their dragons, he says to him, "I want you to cut your eye out. You owe me an eye." Like he's genuinely mad at his cousin still for that incident. And I think if he could have hurt him, he would have hurt him. But would he have murdered him? No, I don't think he would have murdered him, because his mother would be furious, which she is.
Even more so, yeah. I mean, yeah.
So yeah, like I say, I feel like this was if the intention was let's start with something that's going to really grab people and really polarize people. It's funny because the marketing campaign for this season has been choose your team. Are you a supporter of Team Black or Team Green? And I found myself thinking, who is supporting Team Green? Like
nobody.
I don't know anybody who I've spoken to who's like, yeah, who I really can get behind is like Kristen Cole, who's like a psychopath and a homophobe who beat a guy to death in the middle of a wedding ceremony, who can get behind, Alicent, who is, holier than thou, but meanwhile is, letting people, play with themselves while she shows off her feet. Like, I don't know who's Team Green, but having now had Team Black just behead a 6-year-old, I feel like maybe that's a game changer. Maybe there's a little more empathy for both sides now. I don't know.
Yeah. Interesting. So quickly we'll talk about the first 3 episodes of The Boys as well, which has returned. Season 4. One more season to go after this one, apparently. All I can say about this show is we can't say much about this show because it's just like, it is exactly what you expect. Lots of like mayhem, and it's interesting that they've got this new character that's going after Starlight in terms of reputation, right? And she's just like a wingnut, right? But it's very much like politics from a certain country, which shall remain nameless, where you've got one side versus the other kind of thing. In fact, they even name it. It's funny how this show doesn't sort of name political parties as sort of fictitious names. They actually call it what it is, or like today they mentioned Kanye West as a sort of reference. I mean, like what, so you just watched a little bit of this episode of episode 4.
Yeah, I watched half of episode 4 for this season,
Homelander goes home, which is not a good thing. It's like kind of like Wolverine going back to the place where he was made into Wolverine.
Yeah.
But Homelander's got he's not the brightest bulb on the tree as one of our illustrious Slack fans said to me one day. I'm talking about something else, but he's not the most stable guy in the show, right? So yeah, that scene doesn't end well, but and Butcher as well is doing things, and it's just sort of like. It's like Lucy in the Chocolate Factory all over, constantly, because they're always trying to, machinate the situation, and they always end up making it worse. Which is why, like a car accident, you can't look away.
No. And not just because of the X-rated version of Human Centipede that happens.
Yeah, we can't even use that word on television on this podcast. I don't think.
But we could say Human Centipede, I think.
Can we?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Well,
because that's a horror movie. It's not a.
No, but it wasn't. The Centipede goes a little further than this particular one. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the show again. It definitely is great at pushing the envelope.
It's interesting that they showed that scene in the preview too.
I know.
Of episode 4. I was like, what?
Yeah. It's definitely good at pushing the envelope, and it's so funny. I saw some stories this week when the first 3 episodes had dropped, and some people who, we could say are, represented by an orange colored leader in a country south of us. A lot of people apparently have been commenting saying, "Oh, this show is suddenly woke, and it's suddenly this and suddenly that." It's not suddenly anything. This comic book and the show were always like this. It's the whole point is that the right wing, the conspiracy minded, the masses who believe what they are told by people unquestioningly, they were always the butt of the joke. They have always been the butt of the joke. That's the whole thing. And if you had half a brain, you could see that. But apparently this first few episodes of season 4 were the first time that people were like, hey, I think they're making fun of us. Like, I'm like, how could you have gotten through the first 3 seasons of this show
and not realize
that you were the butt of the joke? Because
I mean, the whole thing about it is it's what if, people with superpowers were in our current society with all the social networking and the brand marketing and the search engine optimization and all the nonsense that we put up with every day, but there were super people and their moral compasses don't exist or do exist or
and some of them have
right?
I mean, they're the equivalent. It's basically that the intersection between politics and celebrity, which is essentially where America particularly, but a lot of different places are in the world right now. So we get these people who are using their cult of personality to advance the intention of grabbing more and more power. I mean, that's essentially what has happened on the right side of American politics. Again, I didn't agree necessarily with all the politics, but I didn't think that the Republican Party was an evil entity. But in this, they're obviously playing it to extremes. They're having in place of a Donald Trump character, they're having the Homelander, who's this,
But it's not just that. It's also like Fortune 500 companies.
Yeah,
it's also, I mean, you could just as easily put this in Russia or Russia versus Ukraine. Same sort of like, if we have the power, we'll just use it. And I mean, the thing about this show is it's kind of like, the ill-intentioned side of society is kind of like, we did this thing and now we're going to go to Congress and explain what we did. I mean, like if you look at what the social networks are doing out there in the world, or even the Apples and the IBMs or whatever, they didn't know they were doing this when they did it, right? It's like all this stuff that people are getting called on the carpet for in front of senates and whatever. I mean, like, I, as an IT professional, right, worried that the police had no idea what people were capable of with the technology that they had, and the cops were going. This is like thinking 5 years ago, 6 years ago. We don't know.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And now they're they're hiring IT people. They're hiring black hat and white hat hackers. Now people are starting to get wise to this, and yet but there's a large portion of society who'll still go and click links on Facebook and like buy into this sort of thing. Like the Dakota Johnson on Saturday Night Live talking about where she was sitting in the Oscars, and she was sitting in front of a gentleman you just mentioned a few minutes ago, and she says, I didn't realize I was sitting in front of the most important person in the world, and it turned out she was a few rows ahead of Taylor Swift.
Yeah
Right.
Yeah.
So but again, like that, I mean, like why isn't Taylor Swift running for president? I mean like she probably could win at this point.
Yeah. I actually just was reading an article talking about sort of some of the stuff that's going on behind the scenes in politics in the United States, and one of the comments that came up, and apparently the former President Trump is apparently quite uncomfortable with the power that Taylor Swift has, because she has the power to say, hey, my fans, I expect to see you at the polls, and I don't expect you to see you voting for this person. And that could legitimately be a tipping point.
Well, I mean, they also say the reason why Barack Obama got elected was because he had Oprah behind him, right? Or in his corner, as it were. But yeah, I mean, if you think about it, it's the Starlight character, right? Is for all intents and purposes Taylor Swift too, right? Because in this story, she's seen by a lot of people as sort of the good side of the soups as they call them, right? And that's why the current episode we were just watching, they're trying to do a media spin against her, right? And they've hired an old what do you call it, pageant queen that used to compete against Starlight when they were younger, right? They've hired her, and she's very sort of, very right wing, I guess.
Well,
right?
She's supposed to be Marjorie Taylor Greene, right? That's essentially
who she is.
Yeah,
okay.
She's essentially playing that, like, I'm, just a regular person who has an agenda, and like to have my face in the newspaper kind of person, right? So. Yeah, it's as I say, you don't have to look very hard to see between the lines, especially if you're sort of up on politics. But it's scathing, and it's hilarious, and it continues to be one of the bright lights on television. It's smart, it's funny, it's disgusting. It's hilarious. The part where they end up accidentally ending up having a fight, and they go through into the next room, and it's a bat mitzvah. And then the woman who you just mentioned, the conspiracy person, is like, it's part of a Jewish conspiracy,
Yeah,
and they just happen to walk into this little girl's bat mitzvah. Like, it's just, it's just all the...
Oh, and the guy who shows up at Starlight's campaign headquarters in the last episode says,
saying, like,
where are the children? They're in the basement, and we don't have a basement.
Yeah.
But you've got children imprisoned in your basement. That was the whole pizza thing with Hillary Clinton. Right?
Yep.
Like they showed up at she had a pizza. There was a pizza parlor where they were keeping children in the basement.
Yeah. And it was supposed to be all about a pedophilia ring and all. Yeah, no, it's a very, very smartly written, very, very well acted satire, and they're off to a banging start. And I can't wait to watch the rest of the season. And
so I do have a question.
Yeah.
Okay, so in this season, we start this with Huey's father has had a stroke, and Huey's father is played by Simon Pegg.
Correct.
Right. So, did we see him in the previous season?
We did. We saw him in the beginning. He's popped in a few times. So the reason why Simon is there is because in the comic book version, Simon Pegg was the inspiration for Huey. So in the comics, Huey looks like Simon Pegg.
Oh, really? Oh, yeah. Okay.
So the author of the book basically was...
like Shaun of the Dead sort of idea.
Was a fan of him and basically said, can we use your likeness as the Huey character? I'm a huge fan. Obviously, for the show, Simon was a little too old to play Huey. It wouldn't have been really logical for him to be in that role at this point. So they cast him as Huey's dad.
Okay.
Yeah.
But with an American accent, I take it, right?
Yeah, I mean, in the show, it's got them rooted in America, although it's funny because it's obviously all shot around here. But in the book version, Huey is British, and so is his.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
So, yeah.
Well, because clearly Butcher is British, right?
And Huey's supposed to be it as well. Yeah.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, in the book, does it take place in the UK or something, or?
No, it's more set in America, but like, yeah, where Huey comes from is he's basically Simon. He's supposed to be like, yeah, British.
Cool. All right, let's finish up with our watch list, I guess.
Yeah. I just one quick one. So we just had the penultimate episode of Dark Matter. The finale's coming next week. This was a real cracker of an episode this week. We were chatting about it on our Slack channel, and there's definitely some interesting stuff to discuss when maybe we'll watch the final episode next week, and we'll have a little discussion when Jaime gets back with us, and we can talk about it. But it's becoming a really, really great series. The 9th and final episode's coming out next week. I don't know if this is supposed to be an ongoing series, if they're going to continue this for season 2. But I'm really curious to see where this goes, because it is really taking some excellent twists and turns, and the performances are fantastic. The mood, the atmosphere. I mean, we talked about it before. Apple just really, they don't spare expense, and they do these things right. Like, the show looks fantastic. It's filled with really great performances. And I'm just dying until next week to see how they land this one. So yeah, looking forward to the Dark Matter. And yeah, we're right in the middle of hot nerd summer here with House of the Dragon and Doctor Who and The Boys and the Acolyte, and yeah, like Dark Matter on top of that. It's the cherry on a sundae.
Yeah, no, it's really good. I mean, I did like the sort of splintering aspect of the last episode, which is kind of took me by surprise at first, right? But yeah, interesting. Yeah, and now the truth has been revealed to the mother and the son.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
although it's kind of it's a bit like Rick and Morty, right? In that we know that. I mean, and it's thankfully the good character has a cut on the bridge of his nose. Otherwise, you'd never be able to tell them apart. Right?
Well, he wears that ring. He wears the fake ring, right? Because the Jason he put the piece of rope.
Took his ring off?
No, because his doppelganger in the first episode steals his ring, his wedding ring, because he doesn't have one. Yeah. So when he's traveling through the alternate worlds, he wraps a piece of string around his finger so that he can remember that he's married and all that stuff. So that's how we know our real Jason A, Jupiter Jason, is because he's got that piece of string. Because we see in a couple of the splinters, again, so try and keep this as vague as we can with the spoilers. We see that there are different variations, right? So,
but it's interesting, because I mean, up until this episode, we had bad Jason, and then we had Jupiter Jason, right? Now we have Mars, Mercury, Venus, and like all of a sudden we've got all these other Jasons, that kind of show up, and again, I'm not sure how they found their way into the box, and I guess the box is inevitable.
Yeah.
But it's interesting how they solved the problem with because in I think it's the episode before, the bad Jason has the box cased in cement.
Yeah.
to prevent people from coming and going
until he conveniently needs it again.
Yeah, and then he needs it for his alibi. Yeah, so it's interesting. It's interesting the solution to that solution, right? Like who he brings back through the box, through the portal, right? So, and how that's going to manifest itself, right? Yeah, interesting. Yeah. Cool. All right. And then, so I watched Eric, which is the Benedict Cumberbatch show on Netflix. And unfortunately, they drop all the episodes at once. So yes, I did finish it. It's a 6-episode miniseries. It's the mother is played by the little girl from Home Alone, I think, right? With Kevin and Kevin's friend. Not from Home Alone?
Oh, right. No, not Home Alone. The, I know the one My Girl.
My Girl. Is that who it is?
Yeah.
No.
Isn't it?
My Girl?
Oh, let me double check.
My Girl was the girl who died, right?
No, he's the one that, spoilers, he's the one that dies in My Girl.
In My Girl?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Benedict Cumberbatch and Oh, I know who you mean.
Gabby Hoffman.
You mean Sleepless in Seattle. That's Gabby Hoffman's the little girl in Sleepless in Seattle.
Oh, Sleepless in Seattle, right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
She's been in a few things.
She's been in lots of things over the years, both as a child and now as an adult. She was on Girls for a long time. She's a recurring character on the HBO series Girls, and
Yeah, I never did watch that one.
Gabby, don't. I watched the whole thing in the past year.
She's also the daughter in Field of Dreams. That's where I know her from.
Yeah.
She falls off the stands.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. So it's about this disappearance of a little boy, but his father, Benedict Cumberbatch, is like a Jim Henson type TV show puppeteer, and and he works with. I'm trying to think. I can't remember if it was his partner from the show. I think his name is Lenny Dan Fogler.
Dan Fogler from Fantastic Beasts.
Right. Yes, that's where he's from. Yeah. Okay. Cool. And Balls of Fury apparently, but and Fanboys, right? So they are partners and they have this puppeting thing. And the thing about it is that the Benedict Cumberbatch has a few issues, and one of them is that he ends up like his son draws this cartoon character. This isn't a trailer, so I'm not giving much away. Draws a new puppet that he wants his dad to build called Eric, right? And he's a monster, right? Like Sweetums, Sweetums from the Muppets, like a big giant. Or there's a couple of other large Muppets, but then the kid disappears, and then the dad decides to make the puppet because if he puts the puppet on TV, the kid will come home, kind of thing, right? And then it's all about how the police are trying, and this is like done in I think like the 70s or 80s. So they're trying to, so it's all sort of period dress and stuff like that. And when was the AIDS epidemic? It was like Philadelphia. That was the 80s, right? Like
the AIDS epidemic
85.
was really the 80s and into the 90s, and Philadelphia was early 80s. So late 80s, early 90s is when this takes place, because one of the cops is dealing with that issue too. And it's about the policeman who's investigating. It's about the kid. It's about the parents and this imaginary character that Benedict Cumberbatch has an ongoing dialogue with, right? So, as he's losing it, So it really well. It's a bit Fight Clubbish too, in a sense. How the Tyler Durden, is he really the character, not really the character kind of thing, So interesting show. It's definitely worth a watch. It's probably like a 4-star show as opposed to a 5-star show, but it was enjoyable. Yeah, Cumberbatch is very watchable. He's a good performer, and so it's worth taking a chance on.
Yeah, and this is not a typical role for him, but it was good. And they even they do talk about Henson at one point in the show, because they apparently met him and were inspired by him, kind of thing. So yeah, because they got the Muppets with they all wear the headsets and they've got the Muppet above their hand, and they're all filmed like holding their hand up in the air, right, sort of thing. Yeah, so it's cool. Good show. Yeah, and I guess that's it for another week. So, Jonathan, people get in touch with you. Where would they find you?
You can find me on the Twitter, and the Instagram is at GPK News, or on YouTube at youtube.com/@JPK.
Right.
What about Jaime? Where can people find Jaime?
They can find him as Dev with the Hair. Dev with the Hair on Twitter. Only on Twitter. Nowhere else. Can't find him anywhere else.
No.
Yeah. So,
and you?
There we go.
Where can we find you?
Oh yeah, my name is Simitra, TIMMITRA, on the Twitter machine, the Mastodon machine, the Thread machine, all the machines, pretty much. So until next time, we'll see you in the future. Bye.
Bye.
You've been listening to the Spotcast podcast. If you want to find out more about the podcast or see the episode show notes, visit the Spotcast website at spotcast.com. You can get in touch with us on the website or follow us on Twitter at Spotcast. If you have feedback or questions, send us a tweet with the hashtag AskSpotcast. If you like the show, please consider recommending us to a friend, writing a review on iTunes, or pledging any amount at patreon.com/Spotcast. You can find details on how to help us on our website, spotcast.com/sponsor us. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the future.
took your own spin on the sort of stuff we say during the show.
Yeah, well, I was trying to have some fun with it.
Yeah.
I'm just gotta keep my understudy skills up in case you're otherwise occupied.
Yeah, no, I didn't have a problem with what you were doing. It was just a fresh take on something that I've been saying the same way for 10 years, right? So yeah,
or almost 200 episodes. Holy cow!
Yeah.
Crazy to think that. A couple weeks. Well, unfortunately for our fans, there won't be much of an after show because I have to go rescue my little puppy who's apparently not having a good time downstairs. So yeah, he went to bed early with Mom because he got that little cage in our room. He went down there for the recording session, but I can hear him below me, and he's not impressed. He would like to come out and hang out with me. So.
Sure. All right. Well, my little puppy is over here on the couch beside me. She's having a snooze.
Yes, I'm looking forward to that phase. I just gotta get through the the cute /
the terrible ones. Yeah.
Yeah, the cute / challenging phase first.
Yeah, just looking at a bag behind me, wondering where that came from. Because there are things that get moved around the house. Like our dog likes to bring things around, move things around the house, which are every now and then you're like, oh, look, a shoe. Yeah. Anyway. Alrighty.
All right.
We'll talk to you guys later.
Sounds good.
Bye.
Yeah.